All of a sudden in 2024, black men, black male voters, I should say, have become very important to the Democratic Party. And we also know that with the Democratic Party comes the Democratic shills. Now, this particular shill I'm about to tell you about is named Antoine Seite, and he writes for the Griot. Now, it's an opinion piece, and I want to emphasize opinion. And the title of it goes like this: Beware of stories spreading misinformation about black men being fed up with Joe Biden and the Democrats. And so he says that, there's this information going around that black men are fed up with the Democrats because Joe Biden hasn't done anything specifically for them. And he goes about saying how he's gone into these barbershops and he's talking to different people, and black men especially, and he's not really getting that sentiment. So basically, an article that he read making that claim that black men are fed up is not necessarily true. Now I'm going to read to y'all some of the things that he cited as to why it just cannot be true that black men are fed up with Joe Biden and the Democrats. He starts off by saying this: the reality is that President Biden has delivered. He has signed more than 24 executive orders to deliver $146 billion in student loan debt relief for 4 million Americans. They must have forgotten how President Biden cut undergraduate loan payments in half and helped drop monthly payments for millions of borrowers down to zero. He must not know that earlier this month, President Biden laid out a plan that will expand that student debt relief to more than 30 million Americans. Well, how many of those are black men? See, you're doing this blanket, everybody, all lives matter type of stuff. I wanted you to talk specifically about black men. How many black men did that student loan debt relief help, right? Because I know a lot of black men that are not in college and do not have student loan debt. So how do they benefit from that, Antoine? Oh, you left that part out. But let me go on to some other stuff that he cited as to why black men are not leaving Joe Biden and the Democrats. He says, but what about police reform? I hear you asking. Well, despite what the article tells us, President Biden has delivered there too. Let's start with the fact that in October 2022, President Biden announced that he was pardoning all federal offenses for simple marijuana possession and calling on governors in every state to do the same. He also started the process for broader decriminalization and rescheduling of marijuana under federal law. But that doesn't matter in this article, does it? So right, he did call for it on a federal level to be gotten rid of, but as he also said, he called on the governors in the states to do it. He can't make them do it. And we know that black men are affected more on a state level than a federal level. So what he should have said is, while Joe Biden is asking those state governors to do it, he has no power. And a lot of those state governors are not going to change their stance on the marijuana laws that disproportionately affect black men more than anybody else. But nice try there, Antoine. Let me go on. He also says, how about when President Biden banned chokeholds and no-knock warrants from federal law enforcement? Does that count? What about signing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act to make lynching a federal crime for the first time in history, or creating a national database to track law enforcement misconduct? Maybe President Biden should direct the Department of Justice to go after these brutal cops and departments in cities like Mount Vernon, Louisville, Phoenix, and Minneapolis. But wait, President Biden did that too. So he's talking about the chokeholds. He only has control over the federal level. So unless you're being put in the chokehold by the FBI, CIA, Border Patrol, which I'm not saying they cannot do that or have not done that, they don't do it more than they do on a state level. Joe Biden has no control over that. And let's talk about the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Well, ain't lynching already Capital One punishment? So them adding that extra thing on it, and that's not just for us or for black men. There's other people that could potentially be lynched. But again, that's a federal law that's already doubling on top of a Capital One punishment, if you will. So it's smoke and mirrors. But again, has that stopped chokeholds? It has not. We could go really within the last week or so from this recording and find a black man that has been choked or murdered by the police officers in a very nefarious way. So even with that law, it doesn't stop it from happening. No, there's not going to be a white supremacist that's afraid of that law. So again, it does not help black men. But try again, Antoine, and let's finish this off. He also says, and don't get me started about voting rights, because in August of 2021, less than a year after the election, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the most comprehensive measure to strengthen voting rights since 1965. Every single House Republican voted against it, and once in the Senate, the GOP finally killed it with the same archaic procedural tactic the segregationists had back in the 1950s and 60s. Later that month, Democrats tried again, repackaging the initiative as the Freedom to Vote Act, but Republican senators pulled the same old trick again. So why did you mention it if it did not pass? It only passed in the House, but it did not pass in the Senate. So it did not pass. So why are you even mentioning it? Because you know most black people, or I ain't going to say most black people, I ain't going to insult us, but a lot of black people, your target audience is not going to go and see if you are even near telling the truth. You're just mentioning stuff that has no teeth. So again, that doesn't debunk that black men want to or not want to vote for Joe Biden. Listen, I know a lot of black men too, and I have a lot of conversations with black men, especially on my show. And most, if not all of them, say they're not voting for Joe Biden because they do feel disenfranchised by the Democrats. And as you know, Antoine, you left this off. The Democrats are known for running around talking about the black woman is the backbone of the Democratic Party, negating the black man. But then they bumped their head and woke up and they said, oh, black men, they don't vote that far behind the black woman voter, I should say. And so, yeah, we need to give them some love too. But you don't love black men, Democrats. You only love what they can do for you. You haven't done anything for them. And then you didn't even say nothing about reparations, because we know doggone well Joe North Cumberland want black people to have reparations because they said so themselves out of their own mouths that they're not going to do anything just for black people now, right? We've heard that. So why didn't you write about that? So while you running around there, inflating the truth, if you will, why don't you finally tell the truth? As a black man, don't you think you owe it to other black men to tell the truth so you can actually help your fellow black man? No, you ain't going to do that because you love the Democrats more than you love black men. So as I always say before I leave up out of here, stop lying to kick it. Anyway, for more insightful commentary, please subscribe to this channel and my channel, The Demetra Kaye Show, here on YouTube.